Being an amazing product marketing leader doesn't happen by chance. It happens by habit. Product marketing certified leadership has been built on the back of decades worth of experience from some of the world's best known brands with one goal in mind: helping you be the best leader you can be. Crammed with real life case studies, over 12 hours worth of content, templates, exams, and more, this course is everything you need to lead with authority, confidence, influence, and innovation. Every piece of material within the 7 modules and 29 chapters has been vetted, tested, and approved by senior level product marketers from companies like Amazon, Uber, and HubSpot, serving up game-changing insights throughout. By the time you've wrapped up the final module, you'll be able to define what it takes to be a great product marketing leader, build and scale your team, understand how to successfully manage your existing team, use methods for leveraging data, know how to become the voice of the customer, understand how teams work cross-functionally, and improve your strategic thinking. The beauty of the course is you'll have the freedom to work your way through the modules at a pace to suit you. It's 100% self-paced. You'll even get lifetime access to the curriculum, paving the way for refresher sessions forevermore. Visit productmarketingalliance.com to get leadership certified and spearhead your journey to the top.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Julie Osborn. I work at Etsy, and I'm the product marketing lead for the Etsy mobile app. And today I'm going to share a few lessons that I learned from developing a product marketing strategy for our mobile app over the past year. And I hope that it will be useful to anyone creating an app marketing strategy from scratch, or anyone thinking about app growth in general. So first of all, show of hands, who's heard of Etsy before? Whoa, the entire room, that's great. So now anybody actually shopped on Etsy? Wow, okay, very impressive, awesome. Well, for those of you who don't know, Etsy is a beautiful marketplace for handmade and vintage items. And it's the place where you can search for all sorts of quirky, fun, and just really special products that you can't find anywhere else. Like, for instance, a dinosaur costume for your dog. I don't have a dog, but it really makes me want to have one just so that it can wear this costume. You can also find a pretty bracelet made with real flowers. I think it's really pretty. You can find a men's sloth shirt, if that's your style. And you can also find a giant foosball table custom made for your entire family. And you know what? I'm pretty sure that if we asked nicely, the seller could make a custom table so that all of us could play in this room. So right now you might be tempted to grab your phone and start your holiday shopping on Etsy, but stay with me and don't worry, I will remind you to download the Etsy app at the end. So first, a little bit about myself. I'm originally from Paris, France, as you can probably hear with my accent. And before Etsy, I was not a product marketing manager. I was actually working in sales at Amazon in Paris. And then I moved to Zendesk in California to live my own American dream and become a product marketing manager. And then at Zendesk, I worked on driving user growth by developing and promoting Zendesk apps and integrations. And now for the past 3 years, I've been doing product marketing at Etsy. So when I started working at Etsy, I was on the B2B side of the marketplace, which is our community of incredibly talented sellers. So the people making all the beautiful items that I just showed you. And Etsy has about 2.3 million active sellers. And my job has been to drive adoption of the new features that the product team builds to help these sellers grow and increase their sales on the marketplace and just thrive. But about a year ago, I also took on the job of promoting the app, the Etsy app, to our current 42 million active buyers, along with future potential buyers. And I think it was an interesting opportunity for me because even though I was on the B2B side of the marketplace, my users were never really big companies. In fact, 80% of Etsy sellers are business of one person. And 97% of Etsy sellers run their shops from their homes. So my B2B users were never really big companies. They were users or like people like you and me, but with a real talent for crafts and the goal to turn their passion into a business. And I think this is one example you can probably think of today where the frontiers between B2B and B2C are very blurry. And so I was able to reuse some of the skills that I learned in my first year at Etsy and then apply them to the consumer side. Okay, so now why is it important more than ever to grow app usage? At least for Etsy, I can think of 4 reasons, and I'll go into detail for each one of these points. First, the shopping journey is getting more and more complex. Second, the majority of Etsy buyers are on mobile. Third, apps can provide a better shopping experience than desktop or mobile web. And fourth, it's easier to stay top of mind with an app, and I'll explain why. So first, the shopping journey is getting more and more complex, so you can't just focus on desktop or on the app. You have to think about the buyer journey across all different channels and devices and then optimize for it. Users really switch from one device to another depending on the time of day and what they're up to. They can start comparison shopping on their laptop or desktop during their lunch break, and then they can be, browsing on mobile web at night on their couch watching TV, and then they can maybe purchase something and track their shipment in the app a few days later. So you really need to optimize for that. Second, the majority of Etsy buyers are on mobile. Actually, 58% of Etsy gross merchandise sales, GMS, is done on a mobile device, such as a tablet or a smartphone. And Etsy's conversion rate is higher in the app than on mobile web or desktop. And the majority of our most frequent buyers are using the app. Third, apps can provide a better shopping experience. 63% of people expect brands to use their purchase history to provide them with personalized experience. And 59% of people expect brands to personalize experiences based on their reported favorite items. The nice part about the Etsy app, or really any app for that matter, is that unlike on mobile web, users can stay signed in the app and their information is stored, which means that it's easy for us to take users' interest into account to build personalized recommendations and get them excited about your items. I think it's also easier for users to keep track of their favorite items in just a few taps in the app. Finally, once users have installed your app, it's easier to stay top of mind. The Etsy logo on your home screen gets a place, which is important because it helps with recall. And the app gives you a channel to nudge your users directly in the phone by sending them push notifications that bring them right back in the app. So if you think about it, your phone is always in your pocket. And for people like me, it's literally always in your hand. So these are some of the things that I had in the back of my mind when I started thinking about a product marketing strategy for our app. What was interesting for me when I took on this role was that we introduced our mobile app way back in 2010. But Etsy had always considered its products as an ecosystem that evolved together versus going out of our way to promote the app specifically, which means that I had a blank slate to build my own product marketing roadmap, which was super exciting for me. But at the same time, how do you promote an app while you know it's great? First, it's not an app-only product. It's not Uber. You can't really order a car from your laptop, but you can definitely purchase a dinosaur dog costume on your laptop, so you don't really need an app to make a purchase on Etsy. Second, how do you promote an app that is not new? It's not a shiny, brand new app, and so TechCrunch won't talk about it. And third, the product team is at a point in the cycle where they've been doing detailed iterations to the buyer journey, which means that for now, there's no crazy, sexy, flashy new features that you can build campaigns around, but still, you really have to make an impact. So what do? It's not really an easy task, right? And yet, I was given 2 goals. First, drive incremental downloads, and second, keep app users engaged. It was pretty much mission impossible. So when I started thinking about the app, I was up against 4 main challenges. The first challenge for me was the infrastructure. I really need to ensure that I could target the right users and track the performance of our marketing efforts. The second challenge for me was to decide where to start and what ideas would have the highest impact while understanding the investments that was needed to make them happen. The third challenge was around our users. I needed to understand who the app was for. Was it all our users, some of our users? Who were they? I wasn't sure, and I needed to figure it out. And then I had to find the right moment in the buyer journey to encourage users to download the app and to keep them engaged. Was it for brand new users or users who've been, purchasing on Etsy before? I wasn't sure, and again, I needed to figure that out. And so I learned a few things along the way, and that's what I'm going to share with you now. So first, you need to make sure that you have the right product and analytics infrastructure in place. I worked with the internal teams, and we partnered with external leaders in the industry to help with tracking and deep linking and just end-to-end experiences. And I really wanted to have the right infrastructure in place to help drive incremental downloads and retain our users. As a reminder, there is no such thing as a growth strategy that you can't measure. Even if it's basic, you have to be able to quantify impact with numbers you trust to justify any growth investment. By the way, I think that some of the things that I'm going to be talking about may sound like table stakes, but I think it's easy to forget how you can have a real impact with pretty straightforward tactics if they're executed well. And if you're the first PMM hire at a startup, for instance, I think you may want to have that on your list. So one thing that we started using was deep links, so that all links from our marketing emails land in the app for app users when they open links from their mobile device. And actually, when we launched deep linking, we saw a double-digit % increase in conversion rate, which was huge for us. We also implemented a feature on the etsy.com/mobile page that allows desktop users to text themselves a link to download the app directly on their phone. So you enter your phone number and then you receive a text message with a link that drives you directly to the right app store. And with this, we don't lose desktop users interested in the app who couldn't download the app from desktop because you have to be in the app store. And we can easily track how many downloads we get from this specific tactic. And guess what? We actually get a decent number of app downloads each day from this tactic, and they're highly qualified, high-intent users. We also added a section dedicated to the app in the footer of our homepage, which I know may sound pretty basic, but it actually drove a ton of downloads. And it was really unexpected for us because we really thought that no one would really scroll down to the bottom of the homepage, but it's been a great example of a high-impact, low-effort kind of project. We also worked very closely with the analytics team to understand the value of an app user. I think it's one thing to drive app downloads, but you also want to make sure that it's worth all your investment. You want to be spending money on marketing tactics to drive users to the app store and then realize that they will never use your app or never buy anything in the app. So you need to understand what incremental value, so in our case it's GMS, you get from a user who downloaded the app versus a similar user who didn't, to understand your return on investment. You also need to understand what the nuances are based on the tactic you used to acquire the user. For example, a banner in an email campaign versus a paid marketing campaign in Facebook. One thing that you need to keep in mind is that sometimes you have to take a short-term hit to gain long-term value and introduce friction in the shopping journey to drive app downloads that will have a positive return on investment long-term. I think the punchline here is to make sure that you don't invest heavily in a given channel only to discover later that you've segmented users who are not a good fit for your product in the first place. So once we had the proper infrastructure in place, I worked with our research team to understand who the app was really for and what the best time was to target those folks and communicate the benefits of the app to them. So I learned why our current app users downloaded the app and why they were using it to get some of the key value propositions to use in my marketing campaigns later on. I learned who our app users were to know what users I should go after in the future. I learned why Etsy buyers who didn't have the app actually did not have it. Were they not aware that we had an app, or maybe they downloaded it, they didn't like it, so they deleted it, or maybe they were just not into shopping apps in general. Maybe they were just not into apps in general, and so that helped me understand who to not go after, the people that I didn't want to bother with my app campaigns. The reason why, the number one reason, why our users downloaded the app was actually, I thought it would be faster or easier. And so I created the key value prop, find the things you love faster in the app for mobile web banners, which has been performing really well. And I'll show you an example later on in this presentation. I also learned that buyers prefer using the app compared to other platforms for lots of actions beyond buying things. They like to save items for later. They like to favorite items. They like to create lists of favorites. They like to add to carts, sometimes just to save an item, not necessarily to purchase right away. They like to take screenshots to share with their friends and family. So they do a lot of actions beyond buying. And I also learned that buyers preferred to use their desktop and laptops to compare multiple items on Etsy. They actually open different tabs and then switch from one tab to another to compare different items, or they compare Etsy items with other items from other sites. And so I created the key value prop. When you browse, search, and shop from the Etsy app, will offer you daily inspiration based on your interests. It's like having a personal shopper in your pocket, and that has been doing pretty well. I also learned that long-term event and gift planning can form habitual visiting, which is super interesting. One of our buyers said in a research session, I was on my long commute. This is a daily ritual for me as a bride planning her wedding. So we started looking at signals to figure out when a buyer showed interest in items in the wedding category to then target them with a given app download campaign, so just for them. I also thought, and it was maybe naive, but I really thought that 100% of our most engaged buyers should have the app, but that's actually not true. Apps have long been viewed as the de facto platform for engaging loyal customers, but even among the most loyal customers, app needs to earn their spot with real estate that's limited and really precious on their phone. And actually, I think that if a buyer started buying on Etsy 4 years ago and is still buying and still doesn't have the app, chances are they really don't want to have the app on their phone. So there's no need to waste your time with your app campaigns targeting them. Actually, you'll likely bother them more than anything else, and we'll talk about those kind of backfire effects in a bit. Actually, a recent Google research shows that 87% of people say that they can be loyal to a brand without having its app on their phone. In fact, 53% of smartphone users say they do not have their favorite brand's app installed on their phone. Mobile sites really fulfill a customer's need to learn about, engage with, and make purchases from a brand without needing to resort to an app necessarily. In fact, 2 in 3 people say they can achieve the same goal on a brand's mobile site as they can on its app. I actually remember talking to an Etsy buyer during one of our research sessions, and they said that they didn't want to install the Etsy app because even though they were, a good buyer, they didn't want to be tempted to buy too much on Etsy and too often if the app was on their phone. So I thought, you know what, that's too bad, but I guess fair enough, and it's probably going to be hard to convince this user. And so all these learnings helped me understand who our app users were, how to talk to them and get them interested in the app, and how to target them properly. So now that my research was done, I had done my homework and I knew how to go after, who not to go after, I was ready to craft my first marketing campaigns. And so my first goal was to get Etsy top of mind for our target users. And so in order to do that, I had to optimize places in the buyer journey to get users into the App Store. So here are some examples of the tactics that I put in place. So we've been experimenting with mobile web banners to find the sweet spot where you only show banners to users who are potentially interested in downloading the app. The goal was really to reduce friction because every time you add something to your screen, like here, you increase the friction. And so by default, you may hurt your conversion rate. So you want to make sure that you only show the mobile web banners to the people who are potentially interested in the app. Another thing that you need to do is find the right mobile web pages to show the banner. This is a home screen and listing page, but for instance, you may not want to show mobile web banner on the checkout page because users are just so close to, buying an item. You don't want to distract them from completing a purchase. Something that's good, though, is maybe show a banner after they completed their purchase and say something like, "Thank you for your purchase." Maybe you can track your shipment in the app. Download the app here. We've also been promoting the app in most of our marketing, lifecycle, and transactional emails. And honestly, it was surprisingly tough to ensure that the app is promoted consistently across a complex set of emails, but the payoff was worth it. And on the screen here, you can see an example of a section of a marketing email that was dedicated to the promotion of the app. We've also launched dedicated app install campaigns. And here's an example of an email that's entirely dedicated to the promotion of the app. It's part of our welcome email series for brand new buyers, and that's email number 4. And you can also see that we designed a seasonal version of this email for the holidays. It says, download the app to track your holiday deliveries. Another thing that you can do is to work with your customer support team to upsell and promote your app in your support emails and also on the phone. Okay, so now that you've successfully driven your users to the App Store thanks to your beautiful marketing campaigns, you want to make sure that you don't lose them and that they actually download the app from the App Store. So here are 5 things that really worked for us. First one is to update your assets in App Store regularly. The second one is to optimize your App Store presence. The third one is to add a good promotional video if you can and if you have the budget for it. The fourth one is to manage reviews and user feedback if you have the bandwidth. And the last one is to nurture your relationship with Apple and Google. So first, you need to regularly update your assets in the app stores and make sure they feel seasonal and fresh and use screenshots to sell your app's benefits. You have to always keep in mind that your App Store assets are a showcase of your app and your brand, which means that they have to be consistent with your other channels and platforms, from your website, your mobile web experience, to your set of emails, to your social media presence. All of it needs to be consistent. And I think that a common pitfall is to set up your App Store presence and then just forget about it. So keep that in mind. Second, you need to work on your App Store optimization. And I think it can get pretty technical, so you may want to work with an external partner, one of the industry leaders if you can, or even an external agency if you have the budget for it. We didn't have it, but so we did it ourselves. One tip that I can give you is to start by including as many relevant keywords in both your title and subtitles, and compare your keywords with the keywords used by your competitors. Third, if you can, I would recommend to add a promotional video to demonstrate the features, the functionality, and the user interface of your app. I think that videos are a great way to quickly show what your app is about, and they're an important part of your App Store optimization strategy. Videos can help improve your conversion on the app listing and then get users more engaged once they've installed the app. And I think there are some technical differences between videos that you want to have in your Apple Store versus the Google Play Store. For instance, the Google Play Store, you need to create a YouTube video. So keep in mind that you have to create different types of video. I won't bother you with the details, but I would just say that you should always follow Google's and Apple's recommendations and guidelines. Okay, so now that your users have your app installed on their phones, you may think, great, my job here is done, but that's not true. Actually, you're just getting started. Simply downloading the app is not enough to ensure usage. You need to really compel app downloaders with enticing reasons to actually come back and use the app once they've downloaded it. Acquiring new users can be relatively easy, but the hard part is really to make sure they are retained and come back to your app. In fact, 25% of all apps are used only once before they get uninstalled by the users. And on average, mobile apps lose 77% of their daily active users within the first 3 days after install. So you really need to act quickly and make sure that right away after they install the app, users find some value in it. In the next 30 days, the number jumps to 90%. So one easy way to keep your users engaged and to bring them back to the app is push notifications. But I think you need to keep in mind that sending a push notification is a privilege, and you should never abuse it. Otherwise, users will be tempted to delete your app right away and uninstall it without thinking twice. And I remember Jane Butler, who's a managing director at Google, she said at the Conversion Summit in New York, put the consumer at the heart of everything you do. Remember that you're competing not just with the other folks in your category, but with the best experience that that consumer has ever had. So don't spam your users with push notifications. And also iOS and Android have also made it easier for users to quickly opt out of an app's push notifications. And so one strategy that we implemented was to add this interstitial screen here, to ask iOS users for permission to send them push notifications before it was even asked at the system level. You know, that module that you can see when the system asks you to, if we can send push notifications. And so that way we avoided being blocked from requesting notifications access forever in case we could offer value to the user later on. So if users tapped on not now, then we would not send the request at the system level. And we would ask, you know, a few weeks later. Another great example to keep users engaged with your app is to give them exclusive feature that desktop and mobile web don't have, or exclusive access to app-only products or features or sales. Actually, last year for Cyber Week, Etsy gave all app users an early access to the Cyber Week sales, and that was a really big success for Etsy, and so we're going to do it again this year. However, I think you have to be careful. 63% of people say that when a brand forces them to download the app to access a deal, they can easily delete the app shortly after. And people really voice their frustration when a download is necessary for a deal, especially when they're not ready for that kind of commitment to have your app on their phone. It's kind of a more permanent relationship. So I think there's a balance to strike when building awareness to ensure that you're not turning people off with your app. Fourth, I think you need to manage reviews and user feedback if you have the bandwidth, because you need to keep a good rating to get a chance to get featured by Apple. Apps with a rating of lower than 4 stars are not really featured by Apple ever. And this is why working with the average rating should be one of the fundamental parts of an ASO strategy for everyone who wants their app to be featured by Apple and appear on the main App Store tab. And if you can't respond to every review, which is our case at Etsy, we don't really have the bandwidth to do that, you can consider prioritizing reviews with the lowest star ratings, like the 1-star reviews, or reviews from users who are mentioning a technical bug, and then let them know that you're working on addressing the issue if you are. At Etsy, we actually have one customer support member who's dedicating some of her time each week to respond to negative app reviews. And not to brag, but today Etsy's app rating is 4.9 with 100K ratings in iOS. So we're pretty happy about that. And so speaking of Apple, I really encourage you to nurture your relationship with Apple and Google if you can, to leverage free promotion and potentially get featured in the App Store or in their marketing comms. Every time Etsy gets promoted by Apple, we saw a huge number of impressions for our page in the App Store. And App Store features apps that help it show up their platform, make Apple look good and acquire more users. So you need to make sure you're keyed into what Apple is trying to achieve at a platform level, and try to be unique if you can. Apple really likes to highlight apps that offer something that's new, whether it's like an innovative feature or a different user experience. And I think that to be different, you also have to know your competition. So try to sneak in and just look at your competitors' apps page and App Store pages regularly. Actually, Etsy gets regularly featured by Apple. We've been promoting on their social media and in different categories on the App Store. Really great growth strategy tend to lean into what's really special about your brand. I'm almost done. Yes. And what makes Etsy really special is our community of sellers. I mentioned it at the beginning of our presentation. And so I promoted some of the new features launched by the product team that make it easier for buyers to get to know the people, who make beautiful things on Etsy. And for instance, we've added a brand new recommended shops section in the Etsy app in the home screen just to help buyers discover new and relevant shops based on their past search history. And I think it means that it's easier for passionate sellers to be discovered in the app and discovered by more engaged buyers. So in my book, that's a win-win for everyone. So here's a summary of the 5 most important things to remember from this presentation. First, build the right infrastructure. It's really important to be able to track the performance of your marketing campaigns. Second, target the right people. Third, don't neglect your App Store presence. It's really important, especially if you want to be featured by Apple and Google. Fourth, exclusive app-only perks can help, but that's not enough. And 5 little tweaks and updates can go a long way, as we've seen in this presentation. So now I expect you all to grab your phone, download the Etsy app in the App Store, and start your holiday shopping. And I hope that you found this presentation helpful, and you can always connect with me on LinkedIn. I would love to chat with you. Do we have time for questions? No.
It kind of depends if Alex is nearby. He is. So we don't have time for questions, but thank you so much, Julie. Thank you. It's a small conference, so if you have questions for Julie, catch up with her at lunch or at the happy hour tonight, which starts at 6 p.m.